Yes.
I would like to do some housekeeping.
Do tell.
Since last episode was so good,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it.
You're in it.
I haven't been this in Game of Thrones for a while now.
How deep are you in?
Pretty deep. The love has been rekindled,
Mm-hmm.
like it hasn't been in years.
Uh-huh. Have you been sticking it with your pointy end?
As a faceless man, I feel like I shouldn't share details.
Lady never tells, huh?
A lady never tells. So I would like to add two things.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of housekeeping, if you will.
Shoot.
We did a Boom Goes the Dynamite joke.
Sure did.
That's a reference to a great podcast that we've been listening to for years now.
For years.
It's called Slash Filmcast. And they do the Boom Goes the Dynamite joke, and we love them so much.
We do.
We sort of wanted to do an homage.
Yes, we sure did.
But we forgot to mention it.
That is also true.
Which is a pretty D move. Seems like plagiarism, so I would like to make that even Stephen now.
Yes. We love you, David Chen.
We love you, David Chen. I actually emailed him once and he answered.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I asked him if I wanted to do a song for my short movie, because he plays the cello pretty well.
Pretty well indeed.
He said no, but he was very polite about it. He didn't have time. At the time, I think he worked at Microsoft.
Yeah.
He was polite. I was like, I have no time for other projects except for
he's a busy man. I mean,
he's a busy man. He does podcasts. He does his own movies, whatever. It was a very nice email that he sent back. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I did some research. I also listened to the podcast that David Chen has with Joanna Robinson.
Cast of Kings.
A Cast of Kings about Game of Thrones. They do podcasts about many shows, but my favorite podcast of all time is their podcast about Game of Thrones, A Cast of Kings. Now, the episode I listened to was about episode 2 of Game of Thrones, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. That podcast episode cemented my love for this episode of Game of Thrones.
Okay, how so?
It's among the best episodes of all time, which I mentioned last time.
You did?
But they sort of go in way deeper levels of why this episode is so special and why it matters, and they recontextualize many of the interactions for me. And one other thing they cemented was this weekend, actually, you came over with your family.
I sure did.
And we had inner circle family talk about inner relationships and their qualities in Game of Thrones. One of the things was that I mentioned that I truly feel a love relationship between true love between Jaime and Brienne.
And I didn't think it was a romantic kind of love. And
most of you didn't. Everybody around us mentioned that they don't feel that.
No.
That I was the only one, basically, who felt like there is love between these two characters. Now, I was glad listening to this episode that they also mentioned that I'm not the only one, actually. That a lot of people have felt that. Now, they don't mention some of the stuff I've noticed. They mention some stuff that I didn't notice. This is the most beautiful relationship in this show, man. I would like to add that not only you should listen to this episode of the podcast of A Cast of Kings, and you will understand why, because they put it in words that I can never put. But the eye contact that they make, these people are very closed off people. You have to understand that Jaime has never allowed himself to love another woman since he was a kid. And for him to come out and do the things he's doing with Brienne, which are very professional because they're sort of colleagues, you know? But the way he's giving, the things he's given are for him pure love to the level he can allow himself, because he's never even wondered about other women. He's not like Cersei. Cersei has slept around.
Cersei is fast and loose.
Yeah. He's very loyal to Cersei. Same goes with Brienne. This is a person who's very closed off, who's been bullied
her whole life,
who's especially on the love front. Even the parts where she was there were rumors that she's in love with Renly, and she used to get mocked behind her back, in front of her, in her face. She has a very tough time showing love and letting her guard down. And the only person she's had let her guard down multiple times in front of is Jaime. I would like to add that for her to come up and speak in public and defend Jamie is not an easy move for Brienne.
No, that's a big move.
That's a big move for Brienne. The looks Jamie gives in that episode, there's a lot of shots of Jamie being in the background behind Brienne while Brienne is talking, Jamie being out of focus. But you see his eye movements. You see the way he looks at her. You see the connections they have.
Can I add something here?
One other thing I want to say, something that John Robinson mentioned that I loved, that I didn't even notice. It's not that I didn't notice, I didn't give more of a thought. But I noticed that Brienne was trying to keep it cool when she was being knighted. That she was like, I don't need it because these are the rules, so she has to act cool about it.
She really wanted it.
She's very proud, but she really wanted it. And I noticed Pod going like, it's okay for you to have this. But there's a moment of Jamie nodding and like, it's okay for you to have this. And when they go and when he knights her, I had the exact same feeling, did not dare to put it into words, while John Robinson did. That scene is a sex scene. For those two characters, that is equivalent of sex. They were in that moment alone together. They didn't notice. There's a moment of Jamie being shocked when she's been knighted, that people are clapping. He didn't even notice there were people around. There's a moment that they connected so deeply to each other that they were alone in that moment. It's not even physical contact. And for a man who's married, isn't that what makes you think somebody is meant for you, when you have interactions that are not sexual, that are not deep to that level, but feel as deep?
Well, the thing is, like, I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with it, though. I do think they had a moment. I don't think it's like sex for them. I don't think it's anything.
I think it's love. It's romantic.
Yeah, but the love is not always romantic.
But in their case, it is. It's a very romantic and beautiful.
And that's what I disagree with. I don't think it's a romantic thing. I think it's like of one another. It's a kind of love that like deep friendships have. I don't think it's romantic at all. I don't think those people are actually capable of giving and receiving love in a romantic sense anymore.
They are pushing their boundaries of being capable. They're
pushing the boundaries of themselves, just opening up to each other. Yes. I don't think it's sexual. I think it's like
sexual. I'm not saying it's just sexual. It's pure love.
It is pure love.
When I say it's a sex scene, I mean it's a love-making scene.
Well, it's the same thing.
No, it's not. You have a scene with Bronn being with 3 prostitutes. That's a sex scene. But I'm saying this is a lovemaking scene. This is what they wanted to have with let me finish. Sure. This is what they wanted to have with Grey Worm and Missandei. This is true lovemaking. This is a special moment between these two characters that they go so. The amount of eye contact, the tiny details they show. Jamie is nervous when he's about to knight her. They show him re-gripping his sword and making adjustments. Not only that, the looks they give each other, they forget everybody's around. Brienne totally at that moment when Jamie is like, you can have this, lets her guard down when she never does. And another thing, it's a beautiful thing I noticed, they didn't mention in a Cast of King, which I was sure John Robinson would notice, is that Jamie, there's equivalent to a climax in that scene. And that's the moment when Jamie has knighted her and he caresses her with the sword. Did you notice that?
I did notice that.
This is how closed off these people are. They want to, and the equivalent of giving each other a kiss or whatever is him caressing her with a sword. They are warriors. They wear They wear the same half. This is something John Robertson might mention. I didn't notice. I forgot all about it. They wear the same half of the same sword.
I know.
I mean, they're different halves of the same sword.
Yeah.
This is like a heart necklace that each of them has a piece of. Equivalent of that. These are two warriors, and this is the way they're showing love to each other.
If you choose to see this stuff as that, sure you can. There could be a case made for that. But I just don't believe their love to be romantic.
I think it's so obvious. Another house cleaning that I want to do is that the opposite, which made me sick to my stomach, is that people suggested there is love between romantic love between Sansa and Theon.
Okay.
which that I don't get. They have such a special bond. They are two people who went through a trauma, and the huge plot line is that Theon is not the manly man. He is afraid. He's not as courageous as he wants to be. You know what I mean? Things that are, you know what I mean? Things that are usually get associated with warriors. He wants to be that, but he's not that.
Yeah. And
they went through a trauma where both of them have seen absolute misery under Ramsay's hands, and their traumas are very comparable. And for them, they have a special bond, and I think it has nothing to do with romance.
Well, that's exactly how I feel about Brienne and Jaime. When they were captured, they went through a trauma together. They had to have a shared history.
He saved her.
Yeah, just like Theon saved Sansa. And
Theon saved Sansa, but they have a sibling relationship.
Oh, well, almost.
They grew up together.
And doesn't really mean
they
like
survived.
They grew up together knowing that they're not related.
They survived. They survived the same monster. That bonds.
Same thing, man. Like,
it's not the same thing, though.
It's really the same thing. Like they have shared history. This is like Jaime and Brienne do.
Jaime and Brienne have equal admiration for each other.
Yeah,
and that's the basis of love.
It's a basis of friendship and any respect-based relationship you can have in your life.
But they've grown with each other, man. When Sansa and Theon escaped, they separated. That's when they bonded and they separated. The moment they bonded. When Jaime and Brienne started bonding, they had many episodes still together, many interactions still together, for that bond to grow into something more of just friendship.
Still, I disagree with you.
You can disagree.
But that's fine.
You can disagree all you want, but you pretended, especially this weekend, that I'm the only one who sees this.
I didn't say you're the only one who sees this. I'm saying, like, I know what you're saying. I just don't agree with it, and I don't want it to be that way.
You sort of feel like it's wishful thinking on my side.
Honestly, I think it would take away from their relationship for it to be romantic.
But do you realize their kiss would be their love moment, a kiss, if one of them dies and the other hand, would be like maybe putting their foreheads together. That's how closed off these people are to love. But that for them, it would be like giving them the last kiss.
Honestly, I think it would make their relationship less if it would have become romantic.
I think it's the most beautiful and real relationship in this show.
Hey, agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree.
And that's fine.
And another thing that John mentioned that I want to talk about is that how beautiful that the trial of Jaime is. That scene, when I thought about it, not as deep as I should have. When she said, Brienne is coming in front, this is such a big move. Brienne comes out in front of everybody and mentioned she was almost raped and that Jaime saved her. And then you see Sansa's face soften because she has been sexually abused and nobody was there to save her.
Nope. Theon just watched.
And she knows how important this is, this bond that they have, that she trusts her, and that Sansa trusts Brienne. Like, these bonds are very, very strong.
Yeah. Before you know it, you'll be suggesting that Brienne and Sansa have a romantic relationship.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't believe the Theon and Sansa.
Nor do I.
And the last thing, absolute last thing I want to mention about the last two episodes is that scene between Daenerys and Sansa. In the first episode, I mentioned that Daenerys is really trying hard to charm.
Sure is.
Sansa.
Yeah.
Now, they mentioned in the podcast that something I didn't think about. I thought how noticeable it was that she's trying to charm them. But they also mentioned that she's never tried that before.
Yeah, it's the first time for her.
It's the first time. So she knows how big Sansa is, how much power this woman, and she mentions it as women in this world, you know, the things we have to get through to become leaders. But she truly respects Sansa on some level, because I do think some of that laying it thick is genuine.
I honestly see Danny as a plotting human being right
When
now.
she feels the need to do this, she hasn't felt it ever, man. She went into Carve. She went into Carve when she was on her dying breath, and she was demanding things with fire and blood when she didn't even have full-grown dragons. Here she has two huge armies, full-grown dragons, and she goes to plead to Sansa.
Well, the thing is, she knows in Westeros you have to play differently. She wants to be the queen of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah.
So you need to get along with the Seven Kingdoms.
She didn't feel that need with Cersei.
No, but also because Cersei didn't feel the need to, with her. She just wanted to get at her. And also, she trusted Cersei to some point, which means she was open to negotiation and open to accept her as her subject.
Dave made a funny joke that we all thought about it. Nobody said it. Is that Jorah said to Jorah advised her to talk to Sansa in the scene before it.
She did.
But Jorah forgot to put her through debate prep. Because she did not see that question coming.
What about the North?
Yeah, but she did not see the question coming of what about after this? What if we survive after this? Which is a very smart move on Sansa, and this is a very Littlefinger move.
Yeah.
Because in the last season, Littlefinger taught her to think about every step ahead, every possibility. And surviving this was one of the possibilities.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like Daenerys is a conqueror, Sansa is a politician.
I'm enjoying her this season.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see those two work along each other. My theory is basically Jon is witnessing these two women going to work in two different ways. And they both have something to offer.
Yes.
But they both are lacking in big ways. They're basically the polar opposites.
Okay.
Daenerys is a terrible politician.
Yes.
She relies on Tyrion, on Jorah, on Varys, on Jon to basically tell her what to do. She got great advisors, but she herself is not a great politician.
It's because Sansa had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, Sansa is the other way around. She doesn't have a tactical mind when it comes to war.
It's mostly, isn't it because that Daenerys has always had power on her side and Sansa has been powerless most of the time? So she had to use her wits and learn from those things to be learned, to work with her wits.
Honestly, I'm of two minds about it. She was raised in Winterfell, which was one of the greatest houses, and had a great army, and her father was a soldier and had a tactical mind. I don't think she was interested in learning those stuff. Yeah.
But then she had to survive those stuff.
So I think Jon is basically going to learn from both of them, and he's going to become the king at the end. I don't think Daenerys is gonna make it to the finale, and I don't think.
Yeah, you're going full theorizing.
Yeah, and I don't think Sansa is gonna make it to the finale. Honestly,
I feel like 2 episodes, like on the penultimate episode, we should do a theorizing episode. How it's gonna end. One other thing I would like to mention is that we should do this a housekeeping short episode between every 2 episodes.
All right.
So after episode 2 and then after episode 4.
Okay.
Because this is fun.
It is fun.
And I'm getting back into things.
Yeah, maybe we could do it on the couch too.
Now this was our housekeeping episode. We'll be back in a few days with a review of episode 3, The Long Night.
See you then.
Stay on the watch.